God's Wisdom for a Fair and Just World by Dr. Jim Richards. Chapter 12, Racism. Jesus also said, quote, "Nation shall rise against nation," end quote. Matthew 24:7. The Greek word nation is actually ethnos, i.e., races. Racial, ethnic conflict has always been a key strategy for destroying nations. According to the Oxford Dictionary, racism is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people based on their racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. Today, racism has been refined. According to the woke rules, it seems only white people can be racist. Given the new definition of racism, it turns out the cry for radical justice appears to be more of a battle cry for revenge and punishment. All of this is complicated by radicals who mix themselves into groups that can otherwise be seeking peaceful solutions. The troublemakers change the narrative. Today's radicals ignore the fact that Dr. Martin Luther King made more significant advances towards equality than had ever been made in our country. Dr. King didn't promote revenge and vengeance. He promoted equality. He didn't ask for special treatment of blacks. He asked for equal opportunity. He was adamantly committed to peaceful protest. When Dr. King was assassinated, the wannabes that surrounded him turned his efforts into an opportunity for personal gain more than equal opportunity. Chaos and rioting launched an opportunity for personal profiting. Instead of making peace, they used chaos. Marxist revolutionism replaced biblical peace. As believers, we must ask, quote, "Who changed the rules and definitions of racism?" End quote. The New Enlightenment is certainly not based on God's Word. Much of the church so casually tosses God's Word away without a thought of the consequences. Pastors encourage riot and revolution. A nonsensical, illogical, irrational series of demands have replaced meaningful communication. Now that only whites can be racist, there is no process that demands responsibility of all races. In fact, redefining racism delegitimizes issues that need addressing. It is an irrational presentation of the problem which breeds irrational responses. Racism is racism, no matter which race expresses it, to whom or about whom they express it. According to God's Word, we are to love one another, regardless of race or economic status. Those who do not walk in love are not only destroying themselves, they are destroying the one they swear to protect. Yet, political and even religious leaders justify the self-destructive behavior of minorities as an act of compassion. I was appalled when a politician was asked, quote, "What do you have to say about the burning of buildings, robberies, and violence taking place in the streets?" End quote. This person who uses their religion when it benefits them responded, quote, "People will do what people do," end quote. Leaders who justify bad behavior are like enabling parents who, for their own emotional benefit, will not teach, correct, or allow their children to face the consequences of bad behavior. When children are given constant excuses for bad behavior, they tend to become adults who violate rules, boundaries, and laws, expecting exemption from consequences. Bob Woodson, a black man who was active in the civil rights movement of the 1960s, has strong condemnation for black leaders and politicians who create problems for personal benefit. He points out that they only have a job and make money as long as there is racial conflict. Between manipulative politicians, corrupt preachers, revisionist teachers, and activist judges, it is a challenge for any child to become an emotionally healthy adult. Those made to feel like they are victims rarely develop one of the most important biblical-based attitudes for a healthy life: gratitude. Gratitude doesn't focus on what's wrong, and it doesn't deny what is wrong. It looks for what is right. Gratitude is thankful for what it does have, not angry about what it doesn't have. The opposite of gratitude is entitlement. The entitled feel others owe them. In their minds, it is the world's responsibility to make them happy, healthy, and prosperous. If they are not successful and happy, they are being victimized. One of the great lies of socialism is that all people deserve an equal outcome. Many Christians ignorantly think this position represents God's sense of equality. The Bible and the Constitution do not promote equal outcome, but equal opportunity. One of God's earliest commands to humans: be fruitful and multiply. God gave man freedom of choice. The earth provided natural resources. It was man's choice to go where they wanted to go and to find a place, an opportunity where they believed they could prosper. The Spirit of God is the helper, not the doer. He works in the lives of those who choose to do. God requires all men, regardless of race, education, or background, to realize that He can empower us all to succeed when we trust and apply His wisdom for success. Socialism says there should be no winners or losers. Everyone should be a winner. Through education and assistance programs, both minorities and white compete in programs where everyone is declared a winner. Nursery books have been used for centuries to teach young people to work and to be responsible, and have rewritten to expound socialistic virtues. Personal responsibility is construed as white privilege and replaced by the anti-God message that children of all colors are entitled to the life they desire. Based on the definition of entitled, even when they get what they believe they are entitled, they will never be grateful. Therefore, they will always feel lack. Children who are fed this constant diet of equality by suppressing success cannot compete in the real world. Dealing with failure is one of the most important lessons that should be learned by children. Having a sense of self-worth that is not based on success is the key to healthy relationships that are not ego-driven. This is where the church should step up and teach people to make God their source. Believers should learn about the power of living in their new identity. The church must step up to the one overarching commandment given by Jesus. Quote, "Make disciples of all nations," end quote, ethnos. Instead, we have rejected God's word for something that benefits us, isn't much trouble, and fulfills our carnal sense of success. Developing disciples takes years. More than anything, however, it takes individuals who are making the journey for themselves. A disciple accepts the master's teaching and makes it the foundation for life. Making disciples leads the new convert on the path of life, but it also keeps the seasoned believer on the firm foundation of truth. Everyone benefits. Few churches make disciples. Instead, they make converts. In many cases, they don't even make converts to Jesus. They make converts to their denomination. This is why we have billions of people worldwide who call themselves Christians but know nothing about God. In many cases, they follow a misguided compassion and oppose God. Jesus didn't say to teach certain ethnic groups to be disciples. He said all ethnicities. Our spoken message to minorities has been, you are so oppressed, God can't help you. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but the real racism destroying America is political racism. There will always be challenges when people of different cultures attempt to live together. That's not a racial problem, it is cultural. The real racism, however, is the political leaders and the profiteers who create division and hatred between the races for personal gain. If there is anything history has taught us, it is that when those who benefit from conflict suddenly appear in a situation they can exploit, there's never peace.